Let's go.
Dr. Rosie Milligan, one of the most sought-after speakers on the circuit today. Her live internet talk show, Express Yourself, is the most provocative, thought-provoking, and talked-about radio show on the internet. There's no holds barred, and Dr. Milligan puts the B in bold. She brings it every Tuesday live at 10 a.m. Pacific and 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Dr. Rosie has been proclaimed the most provocative female writer of the century. Her books include Satisfying the Black Man and Black Woman Sexually Made Simple, Why Black Men Choose White Women, and the book Nigga Please. These books have raised eyebrows across the country. She has authored 21 books and published 350 titles for authors nationwide. Check Dr. Rosie out at drrosie.com for her books, articles, and archives of her internet talk show. Sit at the feet of wisdom. Dr. Milligan is indeed a timekeeper and scorekeeper. She is the clock, calendar, and almanac for Black America. You need to hear her.
Well. Good morning. Top of the morning in sunny California. You're listening to the Express Yourself Hour. I am your host, Dr. Rosie Milligan, coming to you live with nothing but straight talk. You know, that's how we do it around here. Nothing but straight talk. My co-host is the Invisible Man. Hey, you guys, the year's coming to an end, and everybody keeps saying, is he invisible? Where's Keith? Keith's been amongst you all the time. You guys got to recognize his voice. If you catch him and hold him and call me, the pot has gotten really big now. The jackpot is big, but I tell you what, it's going to start all over at zero if you don't catch him before December 31st. Good morning, Keith. How are you? The people really don't believe you're real. They hear you every week. I don't understand them. Okay.
You bet. Before they turn me into AI, you better find me.
They better find you. Well, you guys, okay, y'all got a big job. That'll be some big Christmas money. Yep, Kwanzaa money, however you want to put it. It'll be some money on the table if you locate Keith. My other co-host is Shawannah Bordenay. We call her the Valley Girl. She's a real estate guru. I don't know if she's on or not. She's probably somewhere closing the deal.
Making some money.
Yeah, she's making some money, so we're not mad at you, okay? Well, you guys, we have a great show for you today. A great show. You are going to hear from the renowned Dr. Claud Anderson. And you're going to hear his 1995 prophecy about Black America in a permanent underclass status. Keith, is it here?
Yes. Yeah, it is.
He told us about 20 years ago. He named the time that it was going to happen, and people just kept laughing and hee-haw and dancing and having fun, playing ball and whatever else they were doing. But folks, it is upon us. And if you want to know where you are, how you got there, and how to climb from beneath the economic rubbish, this is a show that you need to listen to. When I was listening to Dr. Anderson, I began to shed tears. And I was saying, do you see what I see? Do you hear what I hear, Black America? Your children's economic future will depend on what you do today. I'm going to repeat that. Your children's economic future will depend on what you do today. Then I have to ask the question, Keith, do you love others more than you do your own children? Well, get others off your breast and feed your own babies. That's the cultural and spiritual thing to do. Time is not on our side, folks. We got to act now. So I would encourage those who are joining our show to get on that phone and call your family, call your children, and tell them they need to listen. They need to listen. And I think if they listen to this show, they're going to think differently about how they spend their money and how they start dealing for the holidays. As Keith and I were discussing earlier, as Dr. Martin Luther King said, children, we got some dark days ahead of us. Keith, why don't you talk about that for a minute? What's ahead of us?
Oh, man. Basically, this is the 70s style stagflation getting ready to descend upon us, where jobs are going to be hard to come by, inflation is going to be high, interest rates are going to be high, and it's going to be rough. In other words, we call these austerity measures because there's no place else to actually pull the money from. So it's going to be tough for working folks, young folks, working folks, and especially your children as they come up, finding jobs, having employment, getting their start. It's going to be tough until they come out of this. It's probably going to take at least 5 or 6 years. So it's going to
Wow.
be tough. It's going to be tough.
Finding a job, finding a job, buying a home,
Buying a home.
finding an apartment that you can afford to rent. Folks, listen up. Underscore. You guys need to take note of this. This is no joke. Finding a job, buying a home,
Mm-hmm.
renting an apartment. Those are the basic
Mm-hmm.
securities of life.
Yeah, and then food's going to be high.
Food is
Gasoline.
going to be high. Food is going to be short.
Mm-hmm. A lot of things because you're breaking up this whole distribution system that was global that made things cheap. Things won't be cheap anymore. So it's going to be rough. It's going to be rough for a second. Won't be able to afford stuff that you used to. And we've been living for the last 30 years pretty well. Pretty at the top on the top of the heap. We're gonna have to come back down in lifestyle over the next, I would say, next 10 years. So got to get ready for that.
And we see jobs declining now. I think Facebook.
Oh yeah, Twitter.
Understand gonna lay off
Facebook.
Those people who were working from home. Twitter laying off a bunch of people, and understand that a lot of
Amazon
Amazon gonna lay off.
Oh yeah, they're gonna lay off like 10,000 people.
Amazon.
Right. Yes. Right in December. Right after Christmas rush, they're gonna start laying off people. Yep. 10,000 people.
Folks, let me tell you something. It is critical. The condition for Black America. Mm-hmm. Let's just talk about LA across the country. Whatever we talk about with LA, Black folks are in the same boat all over the. Mm-hmm. I can say world. I ain't gonna even say country. The world.
Oh,
okay?
There's worse in Africa with these currencies, man. Ghana at the beginning of the year was five CDs to $1. Man, it's 15 now.
Wow.
The currency has dropped by 2/3 just in the last year because of what's going on.
Folks, we're in trouble. We're in trouble.
Yeah.
And let me throw this out, and then we're gonna bring in the voice of Dr. Claud Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, folks.
Oh, we're not even talking about what's going on with affirmative action as far as the Supreme Court. So all the 70s cloud affirmative action that you depended on for the last 50 years, that's probably gone. So increased racism on top of that. Oh yeah, we got issues.
Wow. Well, folks, let me tell you. Someone have them. You need to mute. In the city of Los Angeles, I want you all to take note. We're in a critical condition. I'm talking to Black folks right now. In the city of Los Angeles, we are 8.8% in population. Mm-hmm. Come on, folks. Divide that. Oh, my God. That's frightening. Yeah. 8.8.
And dropping.
Right. And if who's on your side? If everybody trying to climb out for themselves and fend for themselves, I mean, that's what they're supposed to do, but we have not done that. We want to include everybody.
Yeah.
Everything we do, we want to come on. We good Christian. Yeah, we're going to include everybody, but ain't nobody including.
Oh, yeah. The white folks
including us.
White folks are trying to hang on for dear life. So what do you think is going to happen to us?
Right. And everybody else is trying to step to the next level, trying to be number one. Folks, race is a game, as Dr. Anderson always showed us. Everybody's trying to get to be number one. So they're not trying to pull you up with them. But just take a note of this. 8.8% of Black folks population in the city of Los Angeles and 9%, Keith, in the county of LA. So, folks, what are your chances if we don't stand together? What are your chances if we can't stand together as a community, let alone a community? We can't stand together as a family. Because the community is made up of people who come out of these home families. We're in trouble. So we're going to ask the technician to go ahead and let us hear the voice of Dr. Claud Anderson. I want you all to take a seat. We're going to talk about it when he finished. This is a serious piece of information that you need to hear. So we're ready to go with that.
The book, Black Labor, White Wealth, has taken Black America by storm. Tonight, Dr. Claud Anderson revisits the issues surrounding the controversial book. Welcome to Detroit Black Journal. I'm Darrell Wood. On this edition of the Journal, Dr. Claud Anderson provides solutions to make Black America economically competitive as a group. That's straight ahead on Detroit Black Journal. We are joined now, as promised, by Dr. Claud Anderson, author of the book Black Labor, White Wealth, The Search for Power and Economic Justice. And Dr. Anderson, I'd like to say once again thank you for joining us on this edition of the Journal.
Darrell, thank you again for inviting me back to your show.
We are hearing that people are responding to this book intensely, perhaps would be the best word I could think of. The book is being bought by the dozens, literally, because people are starting to, I guess, identify with some of the concepts you're bringing up in the book. What we get in this book is a historic context for the situation African Americans or blacks, whichever term is politically correct this week, find themselves in this country, whether it be economic, political, whether it's the social pathology that we suffer from in this country, in our neighborhoods, or whatever it might be. Your book addresses it. It addresses it succinctly, and it addresses it with a scholarly and informational background. I commend you on the work in the book, and I'd like to ask you, what was the genesis for the book?
Darrell, there are probably a number of things. First of all, I could say there was a dissatisfaction with what was happening politically in this country as it was affecting black folk. I could say there was a response to the book, The Bell Curve, which proclaimed that black folk were genetically inferior. Mm-hmm. And what I want to do is tell black Americans that you're not genetically inferior, that you've been socially engineered into your present predicament around this world. Mm-hmm. And I also could say that it was a response to the contract with white America. Mm-hmm. And to tell black folk that that contract is not new, that it was first issued in 1638 by the Maryland colony, mm-hmm. and nothing has changed, and that black folk are still fighting for self-sufficiency and competitiveness in this country, and that we must come together quickly or what risk being a permanent underclass in the society.
One of the alarming predictions you make in the book is along those lines. You mentioned that blacks will be pretty much a permanent underclass in America by the year 2015. Why the year 2015?
2015 because what I've concluded from analysis is that there's going to be a converging of social factors nationally and internationally that's going to place blacks in a permanent status of underclassship. And we anticipate by that point in time, based on all the research that's coming to us, that the next generation of whites is going to be more anti-black than they've been since the civil rights movement. 2, we anticipate, by the same token, about 86 million Hispanics coming into the United States and about 41 million Asians by that point in time, mm-hmm. which is going to kick black folk out of being the minority in the society, mm-hmm. Down to a minority. We've been number 2 in the society for 400 years as a group. We're going to become number 4. And if we have not gotten anything after being number 2 for 400 years, you guess what's going to happen when we become number 4. Because at that point in time, all the new groups coming into America, they're coming in higher than we are because this country operates off of a preferential acceptance program, mm-hmm. which means that groups are coming in based on skin color. They're going from the lightest down to the darkest. Light, yellow, brown, black. And that's what our immigration laws are based on. And black folk would not be able to penetrate through those groups to get to the white society when that happens, because those groups owe us nothing. They don't understand our problems, and they are competitive with us, and we don't begin to be a little more aggressive about being in a competitive posture. They're going to eat our lunches.
One of the things that I should mention right here is the fact that the book is filled with tables, graphs, charts, and historical accounts of how such discrimination, prejudice, and racism, economically, politically, and socially, were engineered into our system literally codified as a way blacks would be treated in this country, so that when we hear you talking about blacks becoming a permanent underclass, or we hear you talking about the inherent racism in the immigration system in the United States, you're not talking off the top of your head, are you?
No, no. See, the first immigration law was put in place immediately after the Revolutionary War in 1790, which declared this was to be a white country, and there was a zero quota placed on black folk. That zero quota stayed in place until about 1965. Based on the 1880 immigration laws, it moved up a slight bit, less than 1/2 of 1%, and to allow more blacks to come in. But in starting in 1965, it went up to 1/2 of 1%. That's why blacks are in a minority class in this country. That's why you cannot get Haitians into the country, because the larger society is extremely fearful of blacks getting a numerical dominance. And they built a quota system into the country, even in our immigration process, and into our to make sure that black folk do not constitute a threat.
And so, of course, I should say, if we look at the historical record, it becomes clear that blacks certainly didn't work to engineer their own demise in America. It was pretty much a construct based on second-class, third-class status that we had in society as the labor class, the free labor class, basically. You address that quite extensively in this book.
Yeah, we've operated off the basis of a three-tiered structure. We had the elite class, or the aristocratic class, then we had the management class, which was made up of poor whites, and we had the working class, which was black folks. See, black folk were the working class, contrary to the popular myth up until about the Civil Rights Movement. Blacks were the working class. Now, after the Civil Rights Movement and blacks became obsolete, now poor whites and some of the other whites are claiming that they are the working class in this country. But they were not. They were supposed to be the management class up until that point in time. Blacks were the labor class in the society.
It's interesting that you bring that up, but wouldn't it be fair to look through that tunnel of history and see that certainly poor whites have worked hard in this country, and have had to come up through some of the same kinds of tyranny that blacks have experienced in America?
Oh, yes, they have. You will always have some poor whites, because that's a class issue. That's not a race issue. See, if it had been a race issue instead of a class issue, then why didn't you have poor whites out there picking cotton along with blacks? Why weren't they enslaved? Why didn't you have poor Indians? Why didn't you have poor Asians? Why didn't you have poor Hispanics out there in the field with black folk? It was a racial issue, not a class issue.
When you take a look at what's wrong, and certainly the book does cover a lot of what's wrong with black America, is it fair to say that at this time in our history, economically speaking, that blacks can, as we have been told to, pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps?
Yes, you can. With what you do have, you don't have very much of anything. The wealth and power, resources in this society have been frozen since 1790. It has not changed barely one iota. Okay, that's for instance. Let's go back to 1860. On the eve of the Civil War, 5% of the American population, the white population, controlled 24.6% of the wealth in the country. Now, after a Civil War, World War I, World War II, a Depression, Korean War, Vietnam War, and the Civil Rights Movement, it went up 1 point. Okay, so then it's 24 point something like 6. Okay, now at the same time, on the eve of the Civil War, black folk at that time had 1/2 of 1% of the wealth. Black folk now, after that same point in time, all those social turmoils and international upheavals, black folk now up to a little less than 1% still. That means we moved up less than 1/2 of 1% after all that turmoil in the world. So obviously the wealth is frozen in this society. Whites now control almost 100%, Daryl, of all the wealth, the income, the power, the resources, the privileges, the businesses, and all levels of government. Black folk do not have the sufficient wherewithal to be able to manage their lives and compete. Now, contrary to what anybody tells you, we cannot compete because we don't have it. It's not a question of that we are genetically inferior or inferior as human beings. It's that you do not have the appropriate tools and devices and controls and mechanisms to be able to compete with other groups.
But certainly we can look and see in this society where blacks have matriculated economically, educationally, politically, there's some advancement.
Oh, yes, most definitely there's some, because there's always going to be an exception to the rule. I mean, I've heard people ask me on different shows, Dr. Anderson, if things are that bad for black folk, well, how do you explain Bill Cosby and Oprah and Michael Jackson and Michael Jordan? What does that mean? What it means is white racism is not perfect. That's what it means. You'll always have exceptional blacks for a number of reasons. First of all, you'll have some exceptional blacks simply because they defy and beat mathematical probabilities, point one. Point two, you will have some blacks who will survive and do extremely well, simply because whites want to be able to demonstrate that the society is not totally shut out, against black folk, locked up against black folk. And thirdly, you will find there'll be some exceptional blacks who have been picked or chosen by some of the white power structures, say, this is my black, this is a special black. Now, in history, we had a special name for those individuals that I talked about in the book. Those what we call some ultra-conservative blacks who see things strictly through the eyes of white folk, and they've learned how to subordinate themselves and to try their best to protect and maintain the status quo, and for that they're rewarded by the white society.
Well, they've matriculated through the educational system, they've moved up through the political system, they've survived social penury, and they've gone on to achieve something. Isn't that worth something?
Oh, most definitely. But see, unless it's tied back and networked back into the larger black body, it has very little impact on black folk.
Why do you think it is that blacks then do not tie their successes individualistically as they may be viewed back into the group?
Because black folk have bought into a lot of the basic premises in the Constitution, which says that to be successful, it must be based on what an individual can achieve in and of his own. That is not true. At the same time, black folk were being subjected as a group in this country when the Constitution was being drafted and implemented and approved. You had something like about 3 million black folk who were subjected to slavery. So then, see, whites have never as a group been enslaved in this nation. So they had a right to be able to go out and experiment and achieve, and as far as their God-given rights were given.
And
allow them to. But see, racism means race. It comes from the word group. And blacks are still perceived as a group in this country. We went into racism, we went into slavery as a group. We went into Jim Crowism as a group. We can only come out as a group. And individualism has no significance unless it's not tied back into trying to help that group come out of that deplorable condition.
Then, because we just don't have enough time to address everything that I would like you to address, if we take a look at a few points and just summarily talk about them. For instance, what's wrong with blacks politically in America, and why haven't we made more strides?
Because for a number of reasons. First of all, because we still tend to think that partisanship is important to black folk. But whites do not place as much importance on political partisanship, as we do. See, when black folk did not belong to any party, and they were independent, they were enslaved. From 1618 up until 1866, blacks were slaves. They didn't belong to any party, and they got slavery out of it. From 1866 to 1936, about 96% of all the blacks in the United States belonged to the Republican Party. What they got was Jim Crowism out of it. From 1936 up to 1996, almost 97% of all the blacks in the United States belong to the Democratic Party. What they've gotten is benign neglect. So partisanship is not the issue. The issue is that black folk have never had an effective strategy for dealing with white racism in this country. That's the issue. And we have never sat down and say, how do we go about dealing with structural racism? If we are the only planned minority in the country, as I just indicated to you a few minutes ago that we were planned into it by a public policy which says that the quota on black folk is zero. You're not going to have anybody going abroad, bringing black folk through refugee programs into the United States from Somalia or Ethiopia or from Haiti. You're not going to do it because they're fearful of blacks. There's a quota on blacks in this country. So we have never sat down and said, how do we win as a minority? You can win as a minority population if you learn and find out how it's been done in the past. Jews are a minority religious group, but they do win. The National Rifle Association is a minority social civic group, but they do win. The wealthy elite in this country is a minority group, but they do win. When will we sit down and strategize how do we win as a minority?
And I guess perhaps the more operative word in that sentence might be, how do we win as a group?
That's right, as a minority group.
Now, do blacks have to act in concert then? Is what you're saying blacks have to act in concert if they are going to stave off becoming a permanent underclass?
That's right, because that's how you perceive. You must deal with the realities of life. You are perceived as a group. And you must act like a group. You must do everything in block. You must practice group economics. You must practice group politics. For instance, in politics, what I would tell blacks to do is just the opposite of what everyone else is telling them. Never divide yourself. Anything that divides you weakens you. You live in a society where the social premise is that the majority wins and the minority loses. Okay? Now, never divide yourself along political lines. Stay as a block. If necessary, go independent. Do not split yourself up among the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, and Independent Party. You're weaker now than you ever were. Vote as a block. Go out right now and register any and every black that can vote. Then pull yourself out of every party and hold yourself above all both of the national parties and say, I don't care who runs for an office. We will deliver our vote as a block to whoever makes the greatest promise to black folk and deliver for us. That's who we'll vote for. And we will not tell you who we're going to vote for until the day of the election.
So you actually exercise some leverage.
That's right, and you demand respect. And at that point in time, they'll watch you and they give some credence to the effects of your vote. And more importantly, you should also create an independent party in this country for black folk, so that whenever
like Ross Perot,
if he runs,
Ross Perot, he's trying to do that.
Well, if Ross Perot runs, you're going to find a greatest move in this country to the independent parties. If a person runs for the Democratic Party, Republican Party, and Ross Perot runs, you got a three-way split. Run a black candidate in an independent party, and that way try to take the election with 26% of the vote. Demand respect from people. Whether or not you win or lose is not the point. Get your issues out there, support your own issues, and support your people as a group.
Educationally, where are we missing it then? If part of the problem is blacks not being able to have political power and certainly not being able to have economic power, then a part of that equation has something to do with what's happening to us educationally in this country. Where are we missing it, and where do blacks have to go to get it?
We're missing it educationally because we've never sat down and discussed the historical relationship between us and the educational system in this country. Remember, the educational system was designed on a public policy that's gone in a complete circle, 360 degrees. First of all, we were denied education. Then we moved from a denied educational basis to desegregated education prior to the Civil War. Then we moved after the Civil War into segregated education. Then by the 1950s, we went back to desegregated education, and now we're back into a state of denial of education. Then I'm going to talk about dismantling the school system, going to voucher systems, or going to some kind of private school system. What that means, Daryl, is that black folk fail to understand that that schools are not change agents. They're only doing what the environment wants it to do. Schools in this country, starting in the 1860s, were designed to create a manual labor force for white society, period. Black folk became obsolete in the mid-1960s. They no longer need us as a labor class. So therefore, the schools are dysfunctional because they no longer need black folk. If we really want to make our schools functional, we have to come up with a national public policy about what we want our schools to do for black folk.
Isn't that a slap in the face to all the black educators and administrators in big cities across this country who are in charge of school systems?
No, it's not, because because nobody's ever sat down with them and say where it is that black folk want to go. Suppose right now we want to, let's say if we had a national public policy on black folk, just as whites have always had a national public policy on us. They've had a policy on us, but we never had one for ourselves about what it is that we want to do as black folk. Suppose right now we want to go to the moon. Then once we decide where we want to go in a public policy, then it becomes incumbent upon all those educators and all those school systems to say, now what must our school systems do in terms of instilling in our kids the attitudes, the skills, the competencies to be able to get us to the moon. See, right now, the schools are not delivering because they don't know what we want them to do. So the schools are dysfunctional. And that's why in Detroit, Michigan, for instance, 57% of all the black kids that start the first grade in Detroit never graduate from high school. Where are the kids going to go? No one has ever told the schools what it is that you want them to do for black folk. The schools are still using the same books, the same curriculum that they've been using for 100 years in the system. And now that you got an 80% black population in the city where it used to be about a 4 or 5% black population. Now, you got to go back and say, hold it a minute, stop. What is it that you want the schools to do? And for black folk, now you have a predominantly black community, and we don't have that. And then you got to interlink that school system to the churches and to the business communities and to the civic organizations to help fulfill the demands of that community.
So you're talking about linking all these institutions that exist in the black community, but what are they, being undervalued or underutilized or ignored?
They must be interlinked. They must be interlinked with all of trying to achieve the same common objective. We don't have that now.
This is where this national public policy that you talk about in the book comes in.
That's right. We must have a national public policy that says to black folk, we can be successful, we can be self-sufficient, we can be independent, and we can be competitive if we have a national public policy so that every black knows what he has to do as an organization, individual, or corporation to get us there.
That's a radical notion, and certainly you have met with some kind of opposition, not only without the white community, outside the black community, that is from whites, but certainly inside the black community, there have got to be people who disagree with your assertions.
You know, the funniest thing about that, I would have anticipated that initially, but at this point in time, after 1 year of running around all over the country and out of the country, and the book right now is #1 and #2 in Black America. It is also #1 in Barbados, Bermuda, and Brazil. And I've just gotten back from Brazil with the Prime Minister and the Speaker of the Parliament sent me a letter, and now I just got a letter now from the governor in Brazil. Let me tell you one thing. I have not had one single black publicly to disagree with anything in the book or disagree with the point of the Institute that's going to try to move blacks across this country in a totally different direction. We're going to move collectively. And I've got millions of blacks now around this country who I've made contact with through various forms of media, public appearances, who said, we are with you 100%. We're going to turn it around. We can do it. We're going to be a competitive group. We're going to rebuild our own communities. We're going to rebuild our schools and our communities and our businesses and interlink them. And we're going to come out with pride, self-sufficiency, and competitiveness.
What about the millions more who say we can't do it? There have got to be multiplied millions of people who say blacks in America are just too divided to buy into this. This sounds oversimplistic. It sounds like pie in the sky.
You're going to have a lot of people say that. And they would probably fall into 2 or 3 categories. First of all, you can have people who've given up to the realities of our conditions, who said simply, things are that bad for us, it's best for me to go side in with the other conservatives in the country and just live with that reality. You're going to have that. You're going to have others who are vested, they're in that small quota. As I said, in the integration process, whites prefer 0 blacks, but they would tolerate somewhere between 5 to 8%. Now, blacks who've integrated into the system and now vested because they are rather comfortable in their material accumulations, they're going to be resistant, okay? But unfortunately, I have not run into any of those yet. Then thirdly, you're going to find black folk who are going to simply say that I'm just either too tired or too indifferent to do anything. And what I would say to all 3 of those groups, stay where you are. There's an old rule in social dynamics that says if you want the same results, keep doing the same thing. And right now, black folk are not progress in this country, contrary to myth. We, in terms of quality of life and the social discomfort index, we are where we were in about 1840s. So keep standing and waiting, because the wagon is coming. I can guarantee you that the Jesse Helms and Newt Gingrich and some of the far right-wing groups in this country are making preparation for black folk. So you tell those who don't want to join the movement and try to change our conditions in this country, make black folk self-sufficient and competitive, you sit there and wait for them to come get you, because they're going to come.
Dr. Anderson, it's been enlightening, and it's been controversial. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for inviting me again.
And, of course, you are watching Detroit Black Journal.
Well, you heard it right. You heard it straight from the mouth of Dr. Claud Anderson. If we don't take heed, well, we're already there where he said we would be. But I think now is the time for us to start looking at what can we do. Keith, what did you think about what you just heard?
He was on the money. He was on the money. He had the pulse of the whole situation correct, and we could have done it. It wasn't as hard as black folks actually made it out to be. Go down to your school board, change the curriculum. There's a lot of things you could have done. The thing is that we bought into the Kool-Aid, and that's what happens when you let white people teach your kids.
And it's really interesting now, more applicable right now when we're looking at global economy, we're looking at where the jobs are going, we're looking at different demands and different needs. And for black folks to be complacent, not be concerned about how their children are being educated.
Right.
I mean, what is the curriculum in the school? Are they preparing your children, or are you just giving them lunch money and buying them clothes for 12 years to go up to a schoolhouse and sit down?
Yeah, in other words, they're using the school as babysitters.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or a way to keep those who are 16 and over out of the street. In other words, a parent can be fined if the kid doesn't go to school when he's school age. In other words, keep them out the street. We don't want them loitering around.
Yeah,
we're teaching you nothing. We're not preparing you for anything, but get out of the way.
The thing is that there's a very good book.
Keith, give me 1 second. Let me let the audience know that they can call in. 310-928-7733. You can call us here at 310-928-7733. Or you can email your question at innerlight, INNER, innerlightradio@yahoo.com. Okay, go ahead, Keith.
There's a very good book that I read years ago, kind of underrated, by Julia Grant. She's actually a white feminist, but she actually talked about the Prussian school system since 1830, right? Called the boy problem, right? How the public school system was
Keith,
actually designed.
hold your thought one more time. Somebody's not on mute. Everyone who's holding, please mute yourself because this is being recorded.
Yeah, somebody got static. So.
Okay.
All right.
Go
If
ahead.
you don't mute yourself, then the engineer's probably going to have to boot you. So please mute yourself. Thank you. Julia Grant says that the Prussian school system, the public school system, is actually designed to do three things, right? The first one is, like you said, get kids off the street, which is babysitting, because you had adults working, right? And these were white people at the time. Get the kids off the street, okay? Secondly, socialize you to get along and fit into the American system. The third thing is to educate your kids. And Dr. Rosie told me this years ago. The average child only gets 7 minutes of one-on-one time with their teachers per day. 7 minutes.
Yeah.
So in other words, educating your kids as far as the public school system is concerned is last, right? Everybody kind of noticed that with COVID, when the kids had to stay home, they couldn't go to school. Okay, all of a sudden, all the adults had to shift their work schedules to actually meet the kids who are actually staying at home. That shows you that the public school system is the biggest babysitting or child care system in the United States. People don't realize that. But the number one thing is actually is babysitting or child care. So what he's saying is right. And the thing is, we didn't step up and actually take control of the school system, especially when it was all black. Regardless of what kind of money you got. Go ahead.
Yeah. But Keith, all these things that Dr. Anderson is talking about, wouldn't you think, how is it that our politicians are not in tune to what Dr. Anderson have traveled across this country talking to people about? What
they are
is
in tune.
that?
They are in tune.
Given that the solution.
They all know. The thing is, they all know, and they all either say that we can't do anything about it, so we have to make a deal, or they're not concerned. And the thing is, we didn't hold our politicians' feet to the fire. Everybody knows.
Is it because they're afraid to identify and say, this is what we need to do? Black folks need this. It's like if I break my leg, why you going to get you some crutches and I'm the only one broke my leg? So they want to include everybody. Why is everybody so afraid to do something for black folks, Keith?
Is because black folks have a position as a permanent underclass or the underclass of this country. Everybody has a spot. And everybody has decided that this is the spot that black folks need to be in. And if you don't agree to it, you're not going to be a politician for very long. And they know that. So they try to either work around it and not speak up on it, or they try to ignore it. And that's all of them. They all know. Okay, especially the Democratic Party. Democratic Party knows that they're going to bring the Latinos in. We need to work with these people. Go ahead.
Callers, we're coming to you in just a minute. Keith, can we go to the callers? Caller, go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Caller, unmute yourself. Go ahead.
Which one we have? They're all three.
Good morning, Dr. Rosie. I'm here too, Dr. Rosie.
Good morning.
Who's first?
I'm here as well, but I'm listening to you guys.
Oh, there she is. I knew she was here somewhere. Okay. Which caller is first? Okay. Where you calling from? And what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Go ahead,
Caller. Who's first?
Well, good morning. It's Barbara Gates, Dr. Rosie, and Keith. How are you?
Hey, Barbara.
Good morning.
What's going
A
on?
great timely conversation. I just want to know, why do black people tend to operate in crisis only? We only get together, think about it, start the movement, start practicing change when crisis comes. We don't do it ongoingly after the mayoral election. We will no longer be concerned with what's going on in the political environment that impacts our lives. What can we do to keep our foot on the pedal so that we can have some change in our community?
Wow.
The thing is that you probably can't, because black folks have been continuously under PTSD throughout the whole time that we've been here, and people are so glad just to get some kind of relief from the anxiety, because things change so fast that when they get a chance to actually kick back and rest, that's what they do.
But
so
Keith,
go ahead.
Yeah, I think also what can happen, Barbara, you raised a great issue. Where do black folks sit and pay attention every Sunday? We have to go back and look at the fact that the black church was the pillar of our community. And it's time that we force them, and I say force them, because that's what's going to have to happen, for them to step back up to what they really should be. Because every Sunday, millions of people are sitting where they can hear something that they need to do. In other words, they can get their marching orders. That's what we need, marching orders. What do we do after we leave this meeting? Because you can hold, I know when I do town hall meetings, people want to talk, da-da-da-da-da, and then you say, well, how many of you would go down to the city council meeting? How many can we get to get on the bus? That's why the buck stopped. You know, we started talking about people working from home since COVID. Black folks been working from home a whole lot of years, because all they doing is sitting at home and talking. They didn't get out. So they've been working from home. So this ain't nothing new for them. So I hope this time, Barbara, that you, myself, and everybody who's listening, when the call goes out to do some work, and you got to keep that fire burning. You can't just put it out and don't do anything. So what you raised is issue, because everybody's excited about voting. Did you get out to vote? But what do you do after voting? That becomes the question.
Thank you, Dr. Rosie.
You're welcome. Thank you. We had another caller. Go ahead. Unmute yourself.
Your call has been forwarded to an automatic.
Okay. If there was another caller, if not, Shawannah, you were making a point. We need to start with the schools. I'm telling you, that's a burden for me, because our children are not educated. They're not equipped to meet the needs and the demand of the workplace, or the demands of what they need to start their own business. And our politicians, particularly the Democrats, needs to start keying in on entrepreneurship. That's the basis. All the other races that are doing well, they're focusing on entrepreneurship. And Democrats always talk about, we need a job, equal opportunities, how many black folks here working, but how many black folks have business? Let's create a path that black folks can be self-sufficient. And I don't see the Democrats trying to do that.
You know what, Dr. Rosie? I want to say something. I agree with everything that everyone is saying, but what I find that we do look at the school system as you know, we're putting our kids there to be watched as opposed to be taught. And I really believe that we as a community, we as parents, mother and father and family, we need to start coming together at nighttime for dinner, sitting at a table, having a conversation, leading, guiding, because right now our children are just running wild. They're not being guided, and it's not the responsibility. I mean, we do want the responsibility of the school and the responsibility of wherever they are, but the responsibility starts at home. And it's our job as parents to teach our children and direct them. We have to teach them to pick up the books to read. We have to teach them to study a new language or study something different or look into business and expand their mindset. We have to do that. What about them
seeing us doing it, Shawannah? What about them seeing us pick up a book? What about them seeing the parents?
Yeah, we need to do it as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
As parents, we need to do it as well. Definitely. But I think it really begins here. And if we start, because we're constantly looking on the outside, but if we start looking on the inside, what can we do different to grow our children? What can we do different to grow ourselves? Because, you know, a year goes by and you're stuck in the same spot that you're stuck in. There's a problem with that.
Okay,
the
Shawannah,
problem starts within. Yeah.
You and I think we agreed one time before, you and I and Keith, you got we are going to take a school at a time and go look at that curriculum and have some dialogue. We can't keep talking about this. We got to make an appointment and step up to one of these schools. So let's start with Washington High in LA. We got to do something about the year preparation that's going on for our students. Now, hold your thought. I think Doris Moses is holding on and trying to get in. Doris, go ahead, unmute your mic and give us your take.
I wasn't really attempting to get in, but I had a thought when the young lady was just talking about what parents are not doing on their end. and I'm speaking from my own family, my daughter's daughter. A lot of these things now, we have the games, we have the YouTube, we have so much influence other than parents. And I think we need to shut down some of this, some of the things that they're doing. I know my granddaughter, she loves her tablet. As soon as she comes in, that's what she get on, and that like become her babysitter at home. And I tell them, do not let her stay on that. Have her to read a book, comprehend what she's reading, tell you what she's read, and that kind of thing. I think that needs to go on in the home and not so much depend on the schools, because they have so many children that they have in these classroom students now. They don't have the time that maybe many years ago they had. So I think that's what parents need to tune into.
And see, the problem is, Doris, they're letting the school babysit them when they get to school. When they get home, you put that tablet in the front of their face and let that tablet babysit them. So who's really minding the children? That becomes the question.
You could if they have social media, especially if they got YouTube, give them a playlist and give them a playlist of things that you want them to watch, and then play that playlist just like they're in school, but actually put what you want to have in front of them, because it's all out there. You just have to put it in front of them. I mean, you got you got automated learning, you got all kinds of stuff that's available for them right now, especially since COVID. All kind of things. They got you're gonna give them a tablet. Don't just let them wander around and direct what they're looking at.
And give them a time span. I mean, from 4 o'clock to 10, you're on a tablet.
I
mean, pick up a book.
Yeah, I mean, the book.
Play games. You know
what? And then
you can put a book on the tablet. You can put a book on the tablet.
Say they want to be on the tablet. Say they want to be on the tablet, and direct what's on the tablet.
Yes,
direct what's on the tablet. There's like different courses that you can take that can intrigue their brain, since they're so intrigued by the computer, since they're so intrigued by playing these little different games. Why not put them on an e-commerce class? You know what? Since you want to be on there, why don't you go get your certificate for that particular program? Because Google has all different kind of programs for kids and adults, you know, where you can become a marketing specialist or whatever. Get something out of it. If you're going to be on the computer, get something out of it. Give me an hour of this class if you want to be on the computer, you know, and make sure your homework is done. And if you make it fun for them, it will become fun. It will become easy. It will become a great thing for them.
Well, let me put it like this. Shawannah, you said make it fun for them. I'm going to go back to the old school. My daddy didn't try to make it fun. He knew I needed to learn how to read and write. Mm-mm. He did what was necessary. That's the problem. Now we want to make everything fun. We got to please these kids.
Yeah, you're right.
That's
you're
not
right.
your job as a parent to make everything fun. Life is not fun.
No.
You know? So it's hard work. So you got to do the thing. You got to teach the kids how to be involved in the thing that they don't like, but they must have. That's the bottom line. Because if we don't change it, just like Dr. Anderson said, folks, it's not we're on our way to become a permanent underclass. We're there right now. So the question is, do you want your children to hold this position that we're in right now? Is that really?
No, we have to make the difference, though, in those kids. Yeah. Absolutely.
Absolutely, yes.
So the question becomes, first thing we got to have the wake-up call, the awareness for black folks across this country, because you see now you got all these talk shows. So black people get excited when they see a few black people. They act like it represents everybody. Have you noticed that we are a part of the world commerce? We are. Now, look at all the TV shows that's coming up with hosts, with black hosts. So we get excited. Oh, we have arrived, you know. I think Jennifer Hudson just picked up a new show. It goes across the board, and we get excited. We divert all our time to making sure we support those shows.
Those are those same contracts, Dr. Rosie, that Kyrie Irving is being held hostage to right now. That paper trail, they hold us hostage to it. And this is Barbara. We have to talk about who's raising these children, who's giving them that instruction. You got grandparents and great-grandparents raising this lost generation that says, no, you can't use that tablet to look up Hoo Hop or on YouTube. You need to do this. You got parents that are not inside the house working 2 jobs trying to hold it down. So we have to look at who's raising these children that we're talking about we need to protect.
And even when you're holding it down, Barbara, you can leave instruction, and there's certain teaching you can do. Because I remember, I've been in the workplace, but my kids knew, okay, when you come in, this is what you do. This what time I want your homework done, because I'm going to check it. Now, underscore what I said. I'm going to check it. When I gave them reading assignment, I would ask them questions. That way I know whether you read it or not, okay? So, only thing I can say, if we don't put brakes on this thing, I don't want my kids to be in this locked into a permanent underclass. I don't see that for my. I don't want it. I don't see it. I can't feel it. I can't taste it, folks. We gotta come to a point that we raise people conscious level, but most people don't even know. Barbara, there's a lot of folks who think we're doing well. They're doing well. They have no clue. We have not seen what we're going to see. Keith mentioned it earlier. People won't be able to, interest rate, you can't buy a house. You can't rent a house. There's going to be a food shortage. You're working a long way from home, and you can't buy gas. Folks, this ain't no playtime. I'm telling you, this is not a party time. This is picking cotton time. This is field time, okay?
Dr. Rosie, do you realize that the concept of community is what we're missing here? Hispanics know community. They talk about them. They got 12 families, 6 people, 7 cars, and they only got one rent payment. Everybody on the block in our house is struggling with their own rent, and everybody's struggling, but ain't no 2 people going to say, let's get together and see what we can do to support this. No 2 mortgages can say, well, you ain't got enough to get on it. I ain't got enough. Let's partner and see what we can do here. That sense of community is what's missing, which is why we can't move forward. We need to create an awareness of what that looks like. What does that mean?
Well, what Dr. Anderson was saying.
You don't have to create it. The environment will create it for you, because that's what's going to happen. Okay.
And what he was saying is that we need to just come together and go in one direction. I mean, you got all these nonprofit organizations who are going. They all got the same purpose, but ain't nobody getting nothing from the money they raises. Okay. You got all these churches and denominations, but what do we have in common that we need to do for our people? That is the issue, more than just hallelujah and going to church and shouting and dancing and speaking in tongues, because you can speak in tongues all night long. If you don't pay that rent, your butt going to be evicted, okay?
That's true. So, and then
we
don't
need to spend money in our community. That's what we're not doing. That's the piece of it that we're missing. We take our dollar and go right on out to the community. None of it stays here. Number one, our price point within our community is usually escalated, which it has to be. I understand that. But we won't say if enough of us support, that price point can come down.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And one thing we don't do, especially with the educational piece, we don't show up at the PTA meetings, teachers' conferences, or the school board, okay, where these policies are being made, okay? None of us do. That's the first thing we have to do. We show up in the classroom and start demanding that this curriculum change for our children.
And Keith, we're going to have to do that, even though we don't have kids in the system. That's why I say we are going to start this, because a lot of these kids are coming from foster homes. They don't even have parents that's rearing them. So we're going to have to make the school be accountable for children that's not ours, because the children that left behind are going to be the one that's going to take your kid out who have finished and got a degree. When we understand.
And believe it or not, because during COVID, right, well, my grandson would have to be online, right, I helped his teacher design her curriculum, design how she taught, right? And then other teachers copied her. So it can happen both ways, but we have to get involved.
We can't keep.
I went to Obama Middle School, Obama Middle School to a meeting, and they were speaking predominantly in Spanish. And I said, I know y'all probably think I can't speak Spanish, but I'm going to help you out. I'm over here. and I don't understand. So I'm going to need you to speak or either translate or do something. Because the people in here that don't speak Spanish have no clue what you're saying. Nobody in the room would say that.
Hey, Barbara, guess what we're going to have to do? We got to get off our ass and learn Spanish, okay?
You said it, Keith. And make sure
I think
I am learning Spanish, guys. I just want to let you know.
Yeah.
There is an app called Duolingo.
In other words, yeah, we got all kind of apps, you got classes, okay? You know, just like with the white folks, right? Some stuff we can't do anything about. You have to get off our butts and actually learn, you know, forget about
so that means if I can see that I need to learn Spanish, that my first language, which is whatever it is,
right,
is no longer important.
No, well, the thing is we have to adapt to the environment.
You have to adapt. When you're dealing with a population who is saying that most of my clients, I mean, people, Barbara, many people have capitalized on their religion and on their language.
Yeah.
That's what happened with many in the area of Hispanic, because they capitalized on the fact that they came to the clinic and most of their patients was Spanish. Some of them would say, well, we don't speak Spanish. That forced the clinics to hire interpreters. Yeah. Everybody, what they have, we don't know what we have to work with, you know. Yeah. So it's important. But I believe that we need to march down to the Board of Education, and we need to demand that Spanish, okay, be a second language for
our kids.
Anybody that's in the school system. It should be a big.
Yes.
Now that makes sense.
Totally. That sounds brilliant.
Yeah. Why should your tax dollar
help other people
help other people become bilingual, and your kid, haven't gotten past the bunnies?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because Barbara, you know what's really going on, Barbara? You know, what's happening is that we not paying attention to. Okay, white folks' numbers are declining. Okay. And for them to hold on power, they have to import people that is close to white as possible, right? Those are Latinos, okay? So we're not going to stop this wave, okay? So we're too small a population, don't have enough power to stop this wave. So we have to play the game smart, okay?
Yeah.
If Spanish is what we have to speak to actually have power, guess what we need to do? Speak Spanish.
Yeah,
we need to learn how to vote for the people in the school board that actually create what happens in our school boards. And most of us going to the poll do not know who to vote for and how to move the mark on what's happening in our school districts. That's where it's coming from.
And we got to have representatives who will actually be on those school boards and come back and report back what they're saying and what they're getting ready to do, so everybody knows.
We got to be in their faces. We can't work from home. I'm going to say this again, black folks. We cannot. COVID is over. We can't work from home. We're going to get out there and do the work. And we have to help change the school, because you don't have a child, and that's the problem. When kids are grown and gone, they don't worry. But I want to say again, those who are left behind are the ones who would take your kids out.
We live in an electronic environment, right? Have them record all their meetings on Zoom, right? So people can actually view them, even if you're at work, right?
And home. They have those meetings on Zoom. So people just need to get on there and find out what's going on and have that input.
Yep. There's all kind of ways we can do it.
But the bottom line, before we close, I want everybody to focus on what Dr. Anderson said. We have become, not becoming.
We have become.
Not becoming. Mm-hmm. We have become an economic underclass status.
Mm-hmm.
Folks, we better jump up and start running fast. And the first thing we need to do is everybody who has any influence, get the word out to your family and your friends. Don't buy a damn thing for Christmas.
Ooh.
That's your first step.
Ooh.
Okay? The next 6 months, if all black folks say, I don't care what's going wrong with my car, I'm going to fix it. What you think would happen if black folks didn't buy a car? For just 6 months, not a whole year. I know y'all can't hold out that long. We had the power to change this condition, our economic condition, but we can change it by affecting the economic, by looking at how we spend our money. This is insane. It really is. With all all this thing that's confronting us now, you got folks talking, well, I got to get my Christmas shopping in. I said, y'all done lost your mind.
Yep.
That's insane. Now, that's what they need to be talking about Sunday, 11 o'clock. That's what the preacher need to be talking about Sunday, Barbara. That's the conversation needs to go on where people are listening. Billions of people are sitting in one spot at 11 o'clock a.m. around this country. But what do they hear that can move them out of their economic condition? What do they hear? No, they don't hear. What they hear is give me what that economic that you have. Wow. There I go, Keith. Ain't gonna be able to get in church again. Wow, I did say that. They need to show you how to change your economic condition. And if you don't insist that wherever you're going to church, if you don't insist that these things happen, don't blame the preacher. Don't blame the pastor. He's one person, pastoring 5,000 people, and nobody have symptoms to say, Pastor, this is what we need. Does that conversation go on? Because I understand that most churches don't even have business meetings anymore. There I go, Keith. Working my way out to church again. But that's true. A lot of churches
or opening their minds up to what's needed, and if they listen to you, they know what's needed. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Doris, somebody's asking for your phone number. Doris, you still on the line? Okay, someone wanted Doris Mosley's phone number. Well, you can call me at 213, if she's off, 213-400-6521, and give me your number, and I'll have her to call you. You can call me, Dr. Rose, at 213-400-6521. And folks, talking about being in the permanent underclass, if you haven't prepared your living trust, you happen to send your family into the underclass, okay? Because your money going to be tied up in probate. If we're not doing the right thing that we need to do, that's part of taking us to the underclass. Jamal had mentioned something to me. Jamal, would you please share with us before we get out of here? Because what you had told me was very profound.
Okay, good morning, Dr. Rosie, and good morning, Keith and Shawannah, and to the listeners. Hopefully everybody's doing as well as possible. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Barely, yeah.
Okay, let me see if I can turn it up any more. Is that any better? Any better?
A little bit better.
A little bit better. Okay. Well, it's still kind of loud over here.
A little more, Jamal.
All right. What about there? How about that?
Okay. All right.
We'll
work with it.
Okay. I'm going to do this as succinctly as possible, but it's very difficult to be succinct with our issues are so many. I think Barbara had made mention of something that I'm seeing more and more happening in terms of other groups of people that are networking. And one of the things that I've noticed most recently is that other groups of people tend to barter and share their skill set much better than black folks do. Now, I'm going to try to break this down. I don't want to beat up on anybody, but I got to say it as I have seen it over my lifetime. Number one, we must, and with a capital M, encourage our young boys in particular, but all of us, we have to get a trade. We have to be able to actually do something with our hands. We have to have a skill. And that skill has to be transferable, maybe even to another country. Some of the things that we participate in and do as what we're calling an occupation or quote unquote job in this environment doesn't apply anywhere else. And can become very quickly obsolete, especially some of the .com, the tech stuff. It morphs very quickly. So you're doing some kind of processing today. tomorrow that skill will be done by a piece of software.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that we have to be very mindful of. And you know, a black person with a job with benefits, damn near a millionaire in the eyes of many black people. We are out of step with reality on the economic level, and that's largely what Dr. Anderson's talking about. What I have noticed in terms of other groups of people, and in California, because our population is so small here, it's inevitable that we're going to end up interacting with everybody else for almost all of our needs if we're not producing them and distributing them amongst ourselves, which by and large we're not. For example, in my spare time, I've been a avid cyclist for almost 45 years, and then I got to the point where I got tired of paying to have other groups of people repair my bikes. So I started learning how to do it myself. And inevitably, I started to look for parts and, learning, the skills of how to do it myself. And over time, I started interacting with other groups of people that either were supplying the tools or knew where I could get the parts or whatever. In California, it's almost either Hispanic or Asian. What I noticed by interacting with both of these groups is that what they do better than we do, by and large, is they just network. They network better. So someone that has either imported or located certain goods or, in some cases, services, they will share those goods or services amongst each other in the network. For example, I remember years ago I saw a video of a black contractor, and I think he was from South Carolina, but he was living in Los Angeles at the time. And he was buying foreclosed properties. And he made a bid on a property which he didn't get. A Hispanic man got the property. And he really at first was not interested in the actual structure. He just wanted the land. But then later on, after talking with some other friends, quote unquote friends of his, they decided that they were going to refurbish this house. Now listen to this very carefully. This man made about 5 phone calls. And the next day, 5, 6 trucks showed up. They refurbished this house in about 3 days. And this contractor, he's watching all this.
Mm-hmm.
He asked the one that outbid him on the property, well, how did y'all do this so fast? And listen to what he said. He said, oh no, I called my friends.
Mm-hmm.
My friends did this. They put this house together as part of this friend network. No money exchange.
Mm-hmm.
They just functioned as a network, as a group, and then put this together, and then they got another one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to say too much more. So this is one of the things that's lacking in our community is one, we have to have a skill. Okay, so he made a few phone calls. He got the plumber, person with the plumbing skill to come in, person with the electrical skill to come in and rewire the place, the person that did the roofing came in and re-roofed the place.
Mm-hmm.
The drywall person comes in. Okay, the flooring person comes in. Okay, these are all part of his quote unquote friend network.
Mm-hmm.
And they put this place back together in about 3 days and moved on to the next one. So that's one of the things I'm noticing is that we have been encouraging a lot of our younger people over the years to, quote unquote, get an education that will get you into corporate America, and you sit in an office next to some white folks and you feel like you've arrived. Other groups of people are not necessarily thinking about climbing the social ladder in the same mechanism, and they're not leaving other avenues for entrepreneurship, out there untouched. Sometimes we leave stuff on the table and let other people fill in the vacuum. They fill a vacuum that we can fill. So
exactly. And Jamal, it's just like now, if you go to a store to buy any furniture or appliance, most time you need somebody to put it together. That's a field right there. And you're absolutely right. When you start telling me how you were making money repairing bicycles. Now, you know, most people, bicycles, ain't nobody going to get no bicycle. We always looking at what's not going to happen. There's a whole lot of money that we're leaving on the table. And that's why we're leaning toward, not leaning in the economic debt. Because we've gotten away from using our brain and our hand. I'm just going to say it just like that. Our brain and our hand. We got to get back to being able to do something. That's bottom line, what you said.
Most of these...
Do something.
Most of these...
Our kids can't change a tire.
No.
Can't change their oil. Get a flat, they waiting on AAA or somebody else to pay them. Come on. I mean, that's the insanity.
Most of these...
sew a button on a dress. You got to throw it away.
Most of these people that I've interacted with recently, and again, this started out as a hobby for me, just something to do so I wouldn't have to be paying somebody else, and then it turned into a small business. Most of these guys I ended up and still interact with right now, number one, migrated here, some illegal, some legal. Most of them had no formal education, as we call it. Many of them still don't speak English or don't speak it well.
But they're making money.
And most of them, after talking to them over a number of years, have at least $50,000 to $100,000 cash money in the bank.
What the old folks said, boy, hush your mouth. Folks, I hope you listen to this. Jamal, we're going to do a whole show, and I want you to be a part of it, talking about, maybe we just need to talk about, Shawannah, you guys, what you can do without a college degree. Maybe we need to talk about that. What you think?
That's good.
Well, let me ask a question.
I think so.
In America, in particular, this is a consumer-based economy. They want people out here shopping. So that means there's a lot of goods out there, which also means there are a lot of overstock and a lot of surplus goods out there. Where do those goods go?
Well, Jamal, you know what I thought about? I wish I could do all the things I would like to do. I'm thinking about getting me a shoe shine parlor right here in the front of my store. If I could get somebody shining shoes, now I don't have time to shine the shoes, but they can make money sitting right here in my business shine. You'd be surprised at the people who would come, especially if it's a young man or even a young woman. People would come to bring their shoes to be shined.
We've heard
most people say, "Oh, that's not an opportunity." You would be surprised. We miss so much, don't we?
Yeah. I mean, we've heard stories over the years of shoe shine men, what they call black boots, sending putting their kids through college and paying off homes, just shining shoes.
That's shining shoes, yeah. They do.
Well, people be driving all over here in South Central to get the shoes shined. See, you guys think I'm playing. I know an opportunity. Don't count me out. Shawannah, Valley girl, I know an opportunity.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I can smell an opportunity.
I love it. You know, and I don't mind being an octopus, Dr. Rosie.
All right.
Grabbing them all.
That's what I'm talking about. Well, you guys, I know our time is up. I think Jamal is going to re-air this show at 6:00 p.m. For anybody that didn't get a chance to hear it, you really need to have your friends and family. They got to hear Dr. Anderson's speech. So go to innerlightradio.com at 6:00 tonight, and they'll be able to hear that show. Jamal, we thank you for your input. Thank you for being the entrepreneur that you are, because if it was not for you, we wouldn't be here on this show today. How you walked away from what you were doing years back and just created a space for yourself. I mean, you are truly an entrepreneur. So we love you and thank you for all that you do. And folks out there, the clock on the wall said that's all, says Ben that's all, but we kind of ran over time. You know how we do sometimes when we get to Holy Ghost. We just keep going. Okay, you guys, same time next week. Thank you, Keith. Thank our guests. Thank you, Valley Girl. Go out there and make a deal. Shawannah, you better move fast with selling these houses.
Girl.
The interest rates is going up.
I know.
Now it's the time we're gonna have to have more than one buyer. You guys, this is a good opportunity.
Oh yeah.
Don't count it as bad. This is an opportunity for two people.
But you know what, Dr. Rosie, I gotta tell you, a lot of people get scared around these times, and I want to put this out there. When I first got into business, interest rates were 18, 20%. It was the scariest time of the market, but property values were down. Save your money. There's going to be plenty of opportunity. As long as you don't look at the rates as being high, there's going to be a lot of opportunities out there for you to buy properties below market. Be ready for it. Be set for it, because this is the time when money is made and when property is bought for families and you can buy a nice home. Don't be scared of it, because now is the time. I'm excited. I'm excited about this time right now. Yes.
Give us your phone number.
My phone number, guys, if you guys want to ask me any questions on real estate, whether you want to sell a piece of property, whether you want to buy a piece of property, whether you just want to fix up a piece of property, call me. My number is 818-201-6565. Once again, that number is 818-201-6565. I'm waiting to hear from you, and I would definitely love to help you out.
All right, you guys.
That's it.
I think next week I'm trying to get somebody on to explore everything about this reverse mortgage. This is something we really need to get in depth with and get a clear understanding about how it works and how it does not work. So we're trying to get a guest on for that, you guys. So anyway, you guys go about your day, and you guys better try to catch Keith. That money is building up, but it's going to go back down
December
to
31st
zero.
is over with.
That's right. Okay, you guys have a great day.